Alec, Bruce, thanks for having me come out here. I didn't know it was you that texted me to come out here. I mean, you have been integral in my sobriety since 16 years ago at 4th and Wilshire, so it's so great to see you and do this. I love this thing. I absolutely love this program. I'm nervous. I don't want to be here. I'm scared, I'm scared. My brain tells me run, But Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me to show up. No matter how I feel, no matter what I think, it's all about what I do here, That's it. If you guys don't like anything I say tonight, or if you don't hear anything I say tonight, just know that this thing works. That's it. That's the bottom line of this thing, Like, I started over here, and now I'm over here, and I don't even recognize the guy who started over here anymore. I do not, it's a miracle. This program is a miracle, and I'm so grateful. I'm so happy that I got the chance to come here and do this and become a member, because I was an outcast. I was not a member of anything for a long time, If you're new, welcome. If you're using and you have a desire to stop drinking, welcome. You're one of us. That's like they said, the third tradition that she loves. This thing works. That's it. I mean, this thing absolutely, positively works. I was born and raised in this place called Topanga Canyon. And it's a strange place, this Topanga Canyon. It's like where people went in the 60s and continue to believe that it's the 60s. And like, so my parents, I grew up with like no rules. And my house, we had like horses and goats and bulls and ferrets running around. And my dad wore flip-flops no matter what he did. He drove a VW van. And my mom was a good Al-Anoner. And she didn't go to Al-Anon, she needed it. And it was magical. My childhood was magical. I had absolutely not one single rule. I could do whatever I wanted. I mean, it was so crazy up there. I remember he would drive his VW van, my dad, while he's smoking, and there would be a pony in the car. In the middle, and I'm not joking. There was a kid, I remember at Topanga Elementary School, getting dropped off by his parents, and they were naked, driving a hearse with a goat in the car. And this is just the reality of that town that I grew up in. I mean, it's insane, right? I mean, I can't believe anyone made it out alive. I cannot believe. It's a miracle, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love alcohol. I love opiates. I love benzos. I love everything that just shuts this thing off. Absolutely. I mean, because I had no rules, like my house instantly was the party house. I grew up and whatever you wanted to do there, we could do there. I could smoke pot with my dad. My friends would come over. Oh, he's so cool. At 14, I was taking mushrooms with my dad and my mom and my sister and 20 of my friends. And they're like, man, your dad is so cool. Your family is really cool. And they're just tripping, doing weird things. It was so weird. My dad wanted to have family acid day. That was what he wanted to do. And God bless him, he's no longer with us, but he wanted to be on the bus. If you guys know what that was, Ken Kesey's out there, that's where he was at in his mind. And it was fun. And I was tiny. I was 5'1" by the time I was 15 or 16 in high school. All my friends were 6 feet tall, but I was drinking and I felt like I was 6'5". And I could go up to any girl and I'd hug them and my face would be right in their breasts every time. But I felt huge because I would drink and I'd use, and I wouldn't let the fact of what I saw in the mirror and determine how I felt about myself. The alcohol, the drugs, that let me tell them, I'm good. I got this. I'm smooth. I'm cool. I even later on used heroin with my dad. I mean, that's a little much, but that's later on. When I was 16, my buddy had a brand new car, a brand new Jeep Cherokee, and we were driving through Brentwood, and he wanted to show me how fast he could go. And we were going 100 miles an hour. Now, I don't know if you guys know what Brentwood is, but it's not a place where you go 100 miles an hour. And we were driving, and we hit a brick wall. Literally, he thought there was another block. And we went through the brick wall and flipped, and it slid into a tree. And he broke his ankle, his jaw, and he crawled out. But I had broken 20 bones. I collapsed my lung, and I couldn't get out. And then the car caught on fire. And then I caught on fire. And I burnt about 35% of my body off. And a guy found me, and he got a knife, and he cut the seatbelt, and he pulled me out, and he rolled me in some water, and they came and they took me away to UCLA emergency. And they put me there on a drug-induced coma of morphine, okay? And when I woke up, 2 weeks later, they gave me a button. Okay, I don't know if you guys know what the button is, but the button is the most amazing thing an alcoholic can ever have, because it is society saying, go, press away, my friend. And every time, like after 15 minutes, because they had a limit of the amount, otherwise I'd overdose, I would sit there and I would wait for it, and everyone would count because they could see how much pain I was in. And I'd count, and they all go 5, 4, and I push it, and I just roll back. Opiates saved my life at this point. Okay, I was literally, I was completely burned. I had like skin grafts under here, and I was in these things called burritos. Like straight arm, like imagine Goofy skiing, that outfit he's in. That's what I looked like, but I was in excruciating pain. But drugs saved me. They literally saved me. They made me, I was so scared that I wasn't going to be able to do anything. I mean, walk, and they didn't know if I was going to live. They had to drill holes in my head for the pressure of my brain. I was just up. And I slowly got better. But what happened was that really kicked off a lot of the opiates going in me. And as soon as I got better, I was like, okay, well, everyone was kind of like, oh, he's a victim, so he can take as many pills as he wants and drink with those pills as often as he wants and take some Xanax to manage anything, whatever I wanted. I was okay. And I ended up being able to go to UCSB, which, if you're an alcoholic, and you guys know, it's a great school. It was. Now it's actually hard to get in there. But back then, it was amazing. It was the only school I went and applied to because they have couches on the front yard of everybody's house. How amazing, how alcoholic is that? Like, I could sleep outside under the stars. Everyone would just party. It was beautiful. So I went there, and I just had the most amazing time in my life. The most amazing time. And I don't know how I graduated. I was taking drugs. I was drinking like a fit. It was ridiculous. And by the time I was coming out and I graduated, I don't know what happened, but everything was in full gear, and my disease was on. It was on. I was going down to Skid Row. I was smoking crack. I was getting meth. I was heroin. It was like, I have no clue how it got so dark so quick, and I was just sucked up, and I looked bad. And that was I was 23, I think at the time, 24. It was so bad. And all my friends had an intervention on me. They're like, wow, dude. Before we were okay with you using, we understand you've gone through some shit. But, this is bad. And let me just say that, I'm an alcoholic not because I had a traumatic event and I got burned and I got drugs. Or because I did heroin and drugs with my dad. I'm an alcoholic because when I want to stop, I can't stop. That's it. I can't stop unless I have a power greater than myself come into my life and help. No matter what power that is, it just cannot come from me. I am just the weakest individual when it comes to my addiction. And what happened was, my friends all had an intervention on me. They're like, you're gone, man. You're completely destroyed. And I thought, you know what? You're right. You guys are the problem. LA is the problem. And I did what I found out later is called a geographic. I bounced. I literally decided to move halfway around the world because I thought if I could go as far away from where I was before, I could be as different of a person as I could be from that person. But wherever you go, there you are, And I ended up in Indonesia, and I was in Bali, which is probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, but I was literally living in the bathroom of my place by the beach, and going to nightclubs and drinking from the time it opened to the time it closed back to my bathroom. Never went to the beach. I had a surfboard, never surfed the surfboard. I surfed the surfboard. I never surfed. I never did any of the things that you do there. My life was just so small. And so I moved back home, and I'm like, okay, this is not the answer. Running from it to Bali is not the answer. And I moved back home, and I was like, maybe I can just straighten it up. And I was like, okay, now what do I do? I don't know. Well, maybe I could take a little bit of this and see I can get away with it. Strung back out again. That's just what happens. You just get strung right back out. Without anything between me and a drink, I'm going to drink, I'm going to use, and it's going to go off the fences. So my best thinking was, Bali didn't work, so I'm going to move to Thailand. I know, it sounds crazy now, but at the time it made sense because there's so much spirituality there. No, I'm serious. It's right. It's like hedonism and spirituality, and the thing is, like, I mean, it's crazy now that I think about it, but like, I thought that I could go there and change. I was always a seeker. I was always seeking, I think we're all seekers in Alcoholics Anonymous, seeking a higher power, seeking something, right? And drugs worked for a while for my seeking. And I thought maybe if I go to Thailand, it's so exotic, it's so interesting, maybe this will help me. And I thought, I got there and I thought, I can do Muay Thai. Muay Thai is like Thai kickboxing. I thought I needed discipline. This is going to make me do okay, right? And so I'm going to these things and I'm boxing, but I'm drinking every night and I'm throwing up in the rings every morning. And then I'm thinking, okay, spirituality. I'm going into these watts and I'm crying and I'm asking monks, I'm giving offering. I'm doing whatever I can. I don't know what's wrong with me. The funny thing about alcoholism is all it feels is like malaise. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. I know something's wrong. And I know something's going to help, but I don't know what it is, and I'm searching everywhere. And so I'm giving offerings to monks, and nothing's working. I mean, and the problem is wherever I go, I always seek the easy kind of, the best way for me to get what I want. So I moved to, when I would go to Thailand, because I go back and forth all the time, I would literally swallow balloons and smuggle heroin in to go to Thailand. So I would have some right when I got there. I would smuggle heroin into the Golden Triangle. You know how insane that is? Enough is never enough for an alcoholic. That's the point of that story. It's like nothing is ever going to be enough, And what happened, I remember I would make best friends with like the pharmacist all the time. And they'd be like, oh, come here. And I'd be like, yes. And she'd be like, oh, today we have a Schedule 4. And I go, oh, what's a Schedule 4? And she'd be like, oh, we have a Rohypnol. And I don't know what that is, but I'm like, I'll take it, because that's what I want. I'm a garbage can. Anything to just change, turn off, shut out. All I want is just, I want that like that midnight you used to turn the TV on sound going, just like that and she would be like, oh, we have Rohypnol. And I would take it. And I don't remember what happened. Because Rohypnol is roofies. And that's the date rape drug. I would literally just take a date rape drug just because I don't care. I don't care what it is, just give me some of it and give me more. All the time, And I was so miserable. I was trying so hard for so long. And what happened was, for me, eventually, I got a call. I'm doing the dance everywhere. I went everywhere in the world, tried to outrun this thing. I did every single thing I could. I read every single self-help book, and I got a call, and they're like, your dad's dying from this disease. He came in here. He had gotten some months before and done this and that, but he was always like, no, AA, it's for victims, people that want to be victims. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I watched him die, and I thought, okay, I need to change my life. But I'm an alcoholic, and I think that figuring it out is the way to fix my life. I didn't know that I needed to ask for help. That's the hardest thing around here. It's like the worst 4-letter word, I feel like, for any alcoholic to say I need help, especially about alcohol and drugs, because that is my best friend. That is the one thing, no matter where I go in the world, I can rely on exactly how I'm going to feel and how I'm going to be. No matter where I am and when I am, it's Mr. Reliable. And to have to turn my back on that and be like, I need help, I wasn't ready for that. I was on the figure it out. It's not one of the steps. Figure it out is not one of the steps. And I was like, I think I need to get married. I think if I know, but I thought it was one of those things that you grow up and you get married, or you marrying grows you up, whatever. And what happened was I married the girl I was using heroin with for the last 5 years, and she was a nice Palisades girl, and it was a big Malibu wedding, so I thought it was real. and like, needless to say, we had like a rehab honeymoon where we were kicking drugs, and it was horrible. And 6 months into that wedding, I was at that jumping off point. That's the jumping off point. Not because of the wedding, not because of the amount I was using. It was a long, long, long time ago, I stopped looking you guys in the eyes, and at this point, I couldn't look myself in the eyes. When I would go into the bathroom, I was ready to kill myself. Literally, that's the jumping off point, you know? And if you're there tonight, welcome. That's the best place to be, because then everything resonates, and you feel the love here. This is the most amazing place you can be when you are the most beaten down you've ever been. This thing is a miracle. I love this program so much. And I was at that point, and I called this friend, and I was like, listen, man, Charlie, his dad, he was using heroin when his dad died, and his dad was best friends with my dad. They did tons of cocaine. He was this big Hollywood director. They just partied, and he watched his dad die, and then he got sober. And I said, Charlie, I need help. And he goes, okay, I want you to come to a meeting. And it says in the back of the big book, we have a spiritual experience. How we have a spiritual experience is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right? Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. For some reason, and I don't know why, I had that moment of willingness to call somebody and say, I need help. And somebody who was actually doing it, you know? And I love AA because the whole time when I was using, he never judged me. He was never like telling me, oh, you should, or I love it's attraction, not promotion. It's so amazing because, and I would be like, Charlie, it's not heroin, it's opium. He's like, look, dude, it's not the 1840s. You're not getting opium from Skid Row in LA. I'm sorry. But he didn't judge. He would joke, but he didn't judge, you know? And I was like, what do I do? And he's like, just come to a meeting. And I came to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was just like this. It was a meeting of people who I was looking around like, okay, sure, maybe, I don't know, whatever, you guys are just different people. I saw tons of differences. And then someone came up and they spoke. And they talked exactly like my story. And then everyone else shared, and they shared exactly the way I felt too. And I was like, okay, these people are just like me. They get down the same way I do. They feel the same way I do. They process the same way I do. And then they stood up at the end, and they said, let's do the Lord's Prayer. And I said, nope, I'm out. Because I'm an alcoholic, and I look for the difference. I look for the reason why this won't work for me, why I don't like this, why I can't, and why somebody else should do it instead of me. It's like, for some reason, like everything's a sell, and that last thing I'll go, no, I'm not a joiner, I'm not in your cult, I'm not in your like, I don't want to be in your church or whatever. I mean, I'm in your church, but I don't want to be like I didn't want to be in it, and so I was like, I did it, but I had a distaste in my mouth when I left because of that, because I looked for the thing that I didn't want to see. I looked for the part that would push me away. That's my alcoholism. That's the part of me that makes me step away from everyone here. And it just wants me to be different, you know? And I didn't know any of these things. And my buddy called me later, and he's like, you know, a couple of days later, he's like, hey, why don't we try and go to one more meeting? I'm like, I don't know. And he said something so amazing to me. He said, why don't you look for what you like? And I'm like, all right, I'll look for what I like. I mean, that's the novel thing about this program, right? It's a change in perception, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see, well, not what can I get out of here, but what can I put into here? That's what a program is, right? It's just this little switch all of a sudden of, am I a taker? No, I'm a giver. And for some reason, I was like, okay, look for what I like. And I went to this giant meeting at Brentwood and Bundy. All right, Sunset and Bundy in Brentwood. And it's a huge speaker meeting. And this guy got up there, and he was just making everybody laugh. And I was laughing so hard, and that's the most beautiful thing in AA, because we can laugh about the darkest things, and it's so freeing. And when you're out there using, or when I'm out there using, I don't get real laughs. There's nothing about me. That laughing is my soul breathing, and I'd had none of it. None of it when I was out there high, no matter what. You know, I had always had, like, things that I thought were funny or weird, but not that true breath of my soul. And what happened was, this guy was up there and he was being hilarious, and then he was crazy. And he's like, oh yeah. And then for some reason I was like arrested for molesting a horse. And everybody laughed at this guy, and I was like, this guy's insane, right? But I respected him because he was up, and it's a huge meeting, and he was being so honest about something so embarrassing. And I mean, he didn't explain it later, but like the point is that no, but he was just being genuine, and that resonates with us. We can tell when someone is saying something true from the heart, and he was just laughing at himself, and that's the best thing I could get around here is just being able to laugh at myself, and I was like, okay, I like that part about this. This is me looking for what I like, by the way, just in case to remind you back, and then he talked about purpose. And I had always had excitement, adventure, trauma, drama, whatever you want to call it, but I had never had purpose. I had never had like some underlying thing that was pulling me through life that was going to make my life and someone else's bigger at the same time. It was always just about me. It was just me and what can I get for mine and how can I feel better. And at that point I was like, I'm in. I drink the Kool-Aid, I will do this thing. But I am an alcoholic. Just saying I'm in, that makes me a member, but it does not make me sober. Okay, it's a desire to stop drinking that makes you a member. But I was on Suboxone at this time. I don't know if it's what you use to kick heroin. I was on benzos, and I was still drinking. I couldn't stop just because I loved this thing and I wanted this thing. So if you're drunk or high here tonight, welcome. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I kept coming to these meetings. I couldn't stop, and I knew the answer was here, and I wanted it. And I would go to these meetings, and it's monkey see, monkey do, right? And people were like, look, just go to meetings, and I go to meetings every day. And I heard pray, because this is a power greater. This is all about finding a power greater than myself. And I would pray every day, 5 times a day. I'd be in the shower on my knees in the morning. I would just pray, but I couldn't stop. I was doing what people said. And finally, I asked my buddy who showed me the program, I'm like, can you sponsor me? And he said, no. He said, you need to find a way, find somebody that speaks to you for some reason somehow. I don't want to change the dynamic of our relationship. Maybe he just didn't want to do it because he's lazy, whatever. It's fine. And so what happened was I was at this meeting at 18th Arizona, and this guy was folding chairs. That's it. Just folding chairs at the end of the meeting, right? Just nothing, doing nothing. And he handed me his card. And I was like, whatever, I put it in my pocket. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home and whatever. And I was like, you know what, this doesn't work anymore. I'm going to call my dealer. And I reached in my hand in my pocket, and I pulled it out, and this guy's number was there. And like I said, this program is just, that's grace, you know. I don't know why I, at that time, chose to call this guy, and I pick up the phone, and I go, hey, man, can you sponsor me? And then he goes, do you know who this is? And I go, no, but I just need help. Can you help me? And he goes, hold on a second. And he gets back on the phone, he goes, I can help you. I go, what do we do? He goes, hold on a second. And he gets back on, he goes, I'm going to come over. The guy had never sponsored anybody. He literally, his sponsor said, just give out your number, try and help people, do whatever. You don't know what the littlest thing is going to do around here. The smallest thing around here could have the biggest impact ever. And the guy came over and just started reading the book with me. He didn't judge me because I was still high and using. In fact, he was so, I love this guy. He was so uninspiring, it was beautiful. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry it's come to this. He's like, I know, it sucks, man. It says in here you can go out and drink. I don't know if you want to do that, but I was like, wow, dude. But he showed up with me, and he kept reading with me, and I was like, okay, all right. And what happened was I was doing stuff, so I was praying with him, and I got to the point of step 4, and I'm still using, okay? Like, I know most people say you can't work step 1, 2, 3 while you're high or using, and that's fine. I don't know the rules. I don't take that up with GRS or something like that, or GSR or whatever. But I don't know. But what happened for me is we read and we did everything we could till step 4. And then I went and I wrote everything down in my life, every single secret I had, everything that I promised I would never tell anybody. And on April 17th, 2010, I went to the beach and I read it to this guy. And that's the day of my sobriety. The day that I was 100% honest with another alcoholic was the day that I was able to let go. I don't know if it's the action. I don't know if it's belief. I don't know letting go. I have no clue. I know that the first step the principle is honesty. And Alcoholics Anonymous is one alcoholic working with another. And I tried every other thing in my life to solve this thing, from Buddhism to I televangeled, like I would give money, whatever I could do. It was ridiculous. But I'm an alcoholic because the day that I shared my truth, everything about myself with another alcoholic, that's my sobriety. And it's been that way since. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to work the steps. Honestly, a lot of people say, you need to dry out first and do whatever, and that's fine. I'm not saying, I don't know why it worked that way, but I do know that doing the work works. I don't know the order or what needs to be done first, but I know that me being 100% honest, me sharing with another alcoholic, and me getting into it makes this thing work, okay? And my life has been so strange since then. I got 10 minutes? Okay. So what happened was I got sober, and life isn't good when you first get sober. I hate to tell you, if you're new, sorry, it sucks. Because everything in your life that just happened, that you've just been doing, you feel. Everything, So the wife that I had chosen, no good. And she ended up going to rehab she ended up going to rehab down south, and then she was sleeping with the counselor. It was very uncomfortable and broke my heart. I had a hard first year. It sucked. And I got kicked out of my apartment because her dad owned the building. And so I just moved home, and I lived underneath my mom in the basement for the first year. And my life was so small, and everything was stripped away except for AA. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful I didn't have a relationship distracting me or a big job. I was a personal trainer, which I still am, a personal trainer. I didn't have anything except for AA that was the meat and potatoes of my life. And I would go to this place called Swingers 4 or 5 nights a week, and we would just fellowship. And this thing, my life slowly got bigger and better. And that's what AA is, slowly bigger and better. This program is about finding a power greater than myself. Right? The whole program is about God. That's it. The spiritual part of this program is like the wet part of water. This is it. Okay? It is the most amazing aspect of my life today because it allows me to get out of my way. That's what God does. And most of the time as an alcoholic, it's by talking to another alcoholic. That's why I'm so grateful when I don't want to be here, I come here because I know that something's going to happen in the exchange. Sometimes it's me giving advice to a sponsee, or sometimes my sponsor giving me advice, whatever. It's in that the magic happens. That's where God is for me. And so this thing has worked a miracle in my life. I've gone through a couple divorces. Life has not been perfect. But it's been exciting and fun and amazing. And I've been able to work with guys and do so much. And I've got to see the ripple effect of this program. And that's the most beautiful part of this thing. We don't know what, each thing we do is going to do for somebody else. And what happened for me, at about year 7, my sister was a real big meth head, real big. And she was so gnarly that she had taken AK-47 and my dad's ashes and shot it in the air over the park. And then she shot herself in the leg with a .357 Magnum and got helicoptered out of Japan. Right, dude? That's my family, right? And she was just insane. And my mom was like, we need to get a what's it called? Restraining order. But you can't give your own family restraining orders. Important knowledge to know. There you go. Okay? So I was sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I turned to my friend, and I go, hey, man, can you come up to my house and give my sister the restraining order and talk to her about A? And my friend was like, your sister has a lot of guns. And I said, he said this. I'm not joking. And I said, it's okay. We'll pray about it. And he said yes. That's a 12-step that you wouldn't ever believe. And we drove up to Topanga. We were driving on Entrada, and we pulled over, and we literally got out on our knees, and we prayed. And he crawled in through the window, which I don't suggest doing at a meth addict's house normally, but he did this, okay? And he crawled in through the window, and he talked to her for an hour. And then she was willing enough to hear something, and the cops came without incident and took her away, and she went to Olive View, which is over in Sylmar. And what happened, she was there for 2 weeks. And then she went to a rehab. And then she went to a sober living. And then she became the secretary at Hole in the Sky, which is a meeting in the valley. And then she met a guy. And then she had a baby. And now she has a 6-year-old baby, a 6-year-old boy, who just had his birthday last week, and she's got like 8 or 9 years sober. And it's the most beautiful thing in the world to me to see. And my friend, all he did was just say, yeah, I'll go. Okay, yes, it's an AA request, I don't know if that did it, but it did something, and that's so amazing to me that like the things that we do for each other around here. It's the most beautiful program in the world. But the problem with the program is it's one day at a time. Time is not a tool. Time is not a tool. That friend, I was going to go pick him up for dinner when we had about 9 or 10 years, and I drove up in front of his house, and there was a coroner there. And he died. He used fentanyl all that day and died. And he had 9 years, and he was going to meetings, but he wasn't honest that day just to say, hey, I'm feeling weird. This thing is beautiful, and it's tragic, and it's a miracle, and I'm so glad I'm in the middle of it. It puts me in the center of my life, and it doesn't mean the center of my life is easy. In fact, all it does mean is that I can navigate the harder parts better. AA has principles. It says we practice these principles in all our tools, and every step has a principle. And if you don't know those principles, they're online. It's really easy. The first one's honesty. The second one's hope. Third one's faith. Fourth, I think, is courage, and it's discipline. Whatever. Each one has one. But there are ways for us to grow up. I never wanted to grow up. I still don't want to grow up. I still think I'm 16 years old, but a taller 16-year-old, which is great. But I still feel inside like I'm that. But now I feel like that part of me is that beautiful, youthful part, like AA, which is the light you see in everybody's eyes here. This is the best thing in town. That's 5 or is that real done? 5. Okay. Yeah. I love this thing, and I love working with guys. And I hate working with guys. Because the truth is, anything that's been good for me in AA is an inconvenience. That's just the fact. Everything that makes me grow is something that I really don't want to do. If it's just sitting home watching Netflix and I could get like really dope that way, that would be the best. But that's not going to happen. Everything I have to do is like, I got to take this call now. I got to meet this guy. But I always feel better after. That's the funny thing about AA. My brain is still alcoholic. It still tells me, don't do it. What's the point? They're all going to judge me. This guy's like, he said, no one here judges. This is the best meeting. What a liar, dude. Right? I love it. It's a great thing to say, but we still lie even. But this is the best thing around, because what we get out of this is that laughter, freedom, and we get to go, okay, maybe today wasn't as bad as it started, because sometimes it starts bad, and sometimes it ends bad, but we get to find a way through, and we always get to find a way through together. And it's with God and with each other and the fellowship, and that's all I have. Thank you. Oh my God.